I finally got a strobe to add to the kit. I'm going to explain why. I'm going to explain what it is. Then we're going to go out to the studio and get some shots in so we can see just how good it works. Let's go. Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am Rusty with Rusty Brown Photography. So glad you guys are here. Hope you're having an amazing year and that you're crushing it in 2022. As you know, our goal for this year is to be better. Be a better photographer in whatever that may mean to you. It could be something really, really small. It can be something big. It could be shooting more, shooting better, better editing, better lighting, what have you. It's a continuous journey for me as well. I'm constantly trying to be better. And in this particular episode, we're going to talk about why I finally got a strobe, like, what drove me to it, how I plan on using it, what types of situations, what that particular strobe is, and then we're going to head over to the studio and get some shots in today and see just how well the strobe works. So, first let's talk about what I got. I've got the Godox AD400 Pro. It comes in this really handy looking box. It's got a handle, as you can see, that comes out the top. We're going to open it up in just a second, but I want to first talk about what my current lighting methodology is. For those of you that have been following this channel for a while, you remember a video that I did about a year or so ago. I'll put a card up right around here somewhere. But in essence, I was using multiple speed lights powered by multiple triggers. More specifically, I have 3 of these Yongnuo 560 version 4s, these different speed lights, and I would put 3 of them on just your generic light stand. I was powering them with Pocket Wizard. I have 4 Pocket Wizards, 1 that would go on the camera, and then 3, 1 for each one of the Yongnuos that would hang on the light stand that would actually fire off the lights. I actually got all the triggers when I really didn't need to. That was before I really understood what slave was. So each of these Yongnuos can do slave mode S1, S2, which basically means I only really needed 2 of the Pocket Wizards, 1 on the camera and 1 on whatever the main light was going to be. And then I would put the other 2 Yongnuos in slave mode, and when the 2 that are in slave sees a flash, they just go off. I did find, however, that sometimes the slave mode was a little slow or it wouldn't fire altogether. So when I absolutely had to have that shot, particularly if I was using all 3 lights and it was multiple people in that setting that I'm shooting, I would trust it to the Pocket Wizards because I could put 1 on every light, and no matter where I was in the room or the studio, when I fired the transmitter, all 3 receivers would go. I am not abandoning this system. This was a very good system. I started using this in 2015, so for 7 years this has been my go-to for either studio lighting or portrait lighting. The downside, obviously, to using nothing but speed lights is I can't shoot high-speed sync. So the maximum that I would get using the Pocket Wizards and the Yongnuo in terms of shutter speed was 1/200, 1/250th if I was pushing it. On average, I was shooting at 1/160th of a second. Well, now I'll be able to use high-speed sync and shoot at whatever speed I want to shoot at, 1/1000th of a second, and the camera will respond. So now we're going to take a look at the Godox AD400, what comes with it, and some of the features, not all of them. This is not a full-blown review. This is more of a show and tell, if you will, showing you why I have it and telling you what I plan on doing with it. So let's take a look at that. We start with this very nice case, ruggedized case. It's got a nice waterproofing coating on it from Godox. What I like about this case, and you'll see this in a moment, it's designed just for the AD400. So let's take a look inside. So if you look here, it's got a really nice pocket at the top that zips and you can put some gear in, but this case was built for this particular light. Comes with a separate Bowens mount adapter. This you would have to screw on, and it comes with the screws for that. It comes with the battery, has a compartment for that, your AC power supply, and right here is the actual flash element, the bulb itself. So I've taken everything out of the case. This is the heart of the system. This is the light. I've already put in the flash element, the bulb, you want to use something between your fingers. They say you don't want to get your fingerprints on it. I'm good with that. Next, you have the protective cover for the element. You want to put that on. Goes right over it, turns, locks in place. It is now protected. Technically, you could travel with it like this in the case, but I'll be removing the bulb every time I'm going to transport the light. To protect the front of the light, you also have this guy, just like that. This whole thing like this fits right snugly into the case. But I won't be leaving the bulb in there. So, you have the battery. I've already charged the battery up. It's pretty simple. You align it, push down, and you're good to go. One of the things that I like about this is when you turn it on initially, it asks you, are you sure you want to turn it on? Just in case a button is pressed accidentally, it will sit there until you turn the dial. I didn't turn the dial quick enough, so it went off. So again, I'm going to press the on button. It's going to stop and say, do you want to continue? And if you do, you just take the dial here and you rotate it around like this. Power on, and then to unlock it, you turn it. There it is. You got the beep. There are a lot of different modes on here. Again, my intent is not to do a full-blown review of this. It's heavy, you know, obviously heavier than a Yongnuo. I'll say, I believe this is about 4.5 pounds. It has all types of settings on it. There is a modeling lamp on it that you can actually set the percentage of how much of a modeling lamp you want. It's ready to rock once you have the power. You can program it here, but you can also program it here. This is the Godox X Pro S trigger. So when you think about this compared to what we talked about before with the Pocket Wizards, with the Pocket Wizards, the speed lights are just dumb devices. They need something hanging on it, hence the second Pocket Wizard with the cord would always be plugged into one of the lights. With the Godox system, it's the receiver is inside of the light itself, so the transmitter does all the work. So once you power it on, all of the features that you need to program for your particular shoot or your setting can be done here, and it will sync to your Godox. It has a ton of different groups and channels that you can change around and play with to get to the point that the probability that you're going to be on the same group and or channel at the same time as someone else in studio is probably slim to none. One of the cool features that I like about this particular trigger is when it comes out of the box, it shows you all the different, you know, groupings and channels. But once you pick what you want, you can hit this one button down here at the bottom, TCM. It lists everything for every group, but when I press that button, it goes to a big screen with just the settings that I want. That's really cool for somebody old like me who doesn't have the vision that you young folks have. And it'll stay like that unless I change it. So only one trigger needed now. This goes on top of my Sony. One thing to keep in mind, this is an X Pro S. As you guys know, I shoot Sony Alpha 99 Mark II. The S is for Sony. Neat fact. I have used Godox in the past without using a Sony trigger. Basically, it still fires and it does everything well. But when you get the trigger, the X Pro specifically, that is designed for your camera's ecosystem, that's what lets you go into high-speed sync. So I was in a studio once before I had this system, and the guy that runs the studio is a Nikon shooter, I believe. Was it Nikon or Canon? I think he's Nikon. But his lighting system was all Godox, and when I was going to start doing my work there, he gave me a trigger, and it was for Nikon. And I got all the shots that I needed because in studio, the probability that I need high-speed sync, slim to none. So I never went above 1/250th of a second, so consequently, you're good there. So having the X Pro that's designed for your camera's ecosystem will allow you to exceed that. And what that means for me is I can now take this light and go outdoors when it's bright. I can get whatever amount of power I need. It's a 400 watt strobe. So now I can ramp up to 1/500th of a 1/640th of a second, 1/1000th of a second, get the shot I need because I have the X Pro that was designed for this system. So I'm going to show you where I got this from, how much I paid for it, and then we'll get ready. We'll go out and get some shots in. Okay? So what you're looking at now is my orders page from my specific B&H account. I got my Godox as part of a kit, and I'll explain to you what that means in a little while. But the light itself, if I click here, you can see that the light by itself is $650, and again, 8400 Pro. As I mentioned just a moment ago, you can see the Godox S Pro S. Although it will do TTL, I don't shoot TTL, but it is the right trigger for the Sony. I added a grid. The kit that I bought actually came with a really cool 36-inch softbox for Bowens mount in umbrella style that opens up really, really nicely. So it was a really good kit. I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about the prices and how much it cost for me to buy the kit itself, right? So what I got in the kit, I got an 11-foot C-stand. Never had a C-stand here before, so that's going to be pretty cool. And it's extremely important if you're shooting outdoors. For when you're going to have a big modifier on the end of that guy, you need something to keep it stable. I did buy sandbags separately. So 11-foot C-stand, 36-inch boombox, octagonal softbox, which is great. The Godox AD400 Pro. And then separately the trigger. So the kit itself for the C-stand, the modifier, and the strobe was $750. Everything that I just mentioned to you would be $920 if I bought them separately. The C-stand by itself is $170. The modifier is $100, and the light is $650. That doesn't mean that my prior system was cheap. It just means that I wasn't comfortable or I wasn't knowledgeable enough in strobes yet. Because if you break down what I spent for the speedlights, I have that here as well. The Pocket Wizards, these little guys, were $150 each. So right there alone, you're looking at $600 just in triggers. The Yongnuo 560, $70 each. I had 3 of those, and I had a kit. I still have it here. But a kit that has the 2 light stands, the umbrellas that I actually used to put the Yongnuos in, that kit was $100. So that was $910 for that system. So it wasn't that it was cheap, I just found it easy. But it wasn't always practical because you have to pack a lot to get somewhere to shoot. I will say this, if you're smart with your lighting, we talk about being better at photography, if you're smart with your lighting, rarely will someone ask you when they look at your work, what was the light that you used for this? What was the lighting system that you used? I have a couple images here, and at no point when folks are reviewing this did they ask, did you use a speed light or did you use a strobe? So what the strobe gives me now is the ability to be more mobile, to shoot more outdoors, and to get just as high a resolution image in daylight outside as I'm limited to getting indoors in a studio. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to pack up the AD400. I'm going to break it back down, put it in the kit. We're going to hop in the truck. We're going to drive over to the studio. Today I'm going to be shooting at Union 206. I'm just going to be putting it through some paces. What I'm looking for specifically is making sure that my settings are good, that I get the right type of light dialed in. I'm going to be using different modifiers to see how it works. So let's pack this guy up. Get on the road, and I'll see you guys at the studio. Hey guys, we are here at Union 206 in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a really good studio if you're in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I will put a link to this studio in the description. As you can see, we've got the Godox AD400. We're going to use multiple modifiers today and see what kind of shots we get. It should be noted that the studio also uses a Godox system, so I will be using some of their Godox lights for fill light, rim light, things like that. I'm going to stick with this guy here for the key light, you know, and just kind of get used to some of the settings and stuff. So let's get around and get some shots up. All right guys, so we wrapped up today. It was a pretty good shoot. It was more about teaching and for me to get familiar using the Godox system. I did write down the power that I was using based on the shots while I was shooting one model. I had one set of settings for the Godox lights. When I shot two at the same time, I modified that a little bit, but I did have one key light and used the second one for a fill light. I can tell you that from here in the studio, the Godox system worked as advertised. It was very easy to do. I was able to set the modeling lamps to the percentage that I wanted, and I like them on all the time as opposed to the proportional piece. So we'll see what we got. We're going to go back home to the studio, put these images on the computer and see what they look like. But so far, I'm really happy with this Godox AD400. The next thing that I do with it will be some type of outdoor shoot. So I'm going to break down this gear here in the studio and head back, and we'll see you guys in home studio later. All right, guys, we are back in the studio. A little bit of traffic getting back home, but all in all, worth it. So let's take a look first at the shots that we got in studio using the Godox, right? Okay, so here's the first shot. This is with Carrington, and really simple settings that I used today. If you look up in the upper right, ISO was 160. I'm using an 85mm prime at f8 and 1/160th of a second. So nothing too dramatic in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And I believe that the lighting is spot on. It's even. It's helped me get the textures in some of the fabrics. If you look here at the fabric of the sofa, and even in the foreground, some of that rough grain on the table, as well as the detail in Carrington's jeans, it all came out well. I think it was really well lit, not bad. Next shot, we have Carrington and Anijah both in, so now I've got two subjects. I'll talk about the lighting power in just a second, but still really even. And what I like about it is you have two people with two different skin complexions, and I didn't change the two lights that I was using at all. And having that light fall and balance over two subjects is really nice. Same settings again, ISO 160, 85mm prime at f8 and 1/160th of a second. The only thing I did different in the last shot was switch the two subjects so that Carrington's on the right, Anijah's on the left, and again, very well lit, little tighter shot here, but still using the 85 at ISO 160 at f8 and 1/160th of a second. So all in all, it really did turn out very nicely. So with that, first let me say thanks to Carrington and Anijah for being my volunteers today. I wasn't sure if anybody was going to be in the studio that I could actually test this on. So big ups to you guys for helping me out for a little while today. A couple of things that I wanted to tell you was that I was using my Godox AD400 Pro as the key light or as the primary light. And in studio, they also have Godox, right? And you may have seen that in some of the shots. But the lights that are in studio are called the QS402s. It's only $200 per light. It does not have the battery pack on the back like this. If you look at my AD400 Pro, this is a little bit bigger, heavier. It costs a little bit more. You can use this in a studio or on the road, whereas the QS402 is a studio only light. So my setup was I had the AD400 Pro as the key light, and I only had it set up on 1/4 power. I had that running through a rectangular modifier with a grid on it, and I kept that kind of low because we had a rectangular sofa, and I wanted to make sure that the environment was evenly lit as well as the subjects. And then I took the studio's Godox, the QS402, put that on a 36-inch octobox, and it was camera right and up at about a 45-degree angle, and just one of them to cover, both subjects. The power on that was 1/4 power plus 0.03. So let's talk about that real quickly. Don't get too wrapped around the axle about the power settings until you're in the environment that you're going to shoot. The biggest factors that are going to impact that are how far away are the subjects from you, and how far away are the lights from the subject, which is the most important thing. So I could tell you, lock in these power settings, start at 1/4 power or 1/8 power, but if your environment or your subject isn't aligned properly, none of that's going to matter. So just like you have a set of base settings for your camera when you go into studio, Start off low with low power with your strobe. As in any other instance, you would do the same thing where you would expose for the environment first, right? Before you turn on your light, put your light on, make your adjustment, and there you go. So in this particular case, they could have both been at 1/4 power, you know, because one was taller and one was lower. I could have shifted either one and still gotten the same result. So don't worry about the power settings as much. What is good to understand though is that with the Sony trigger for the Godox, I was able to manage both lights, and it's pretty simple. I put the key light and the fill light in different groups, but on the same channel. So, you know, group A for one, group B for another, but both on channel 3 or channel 5, whichever it was. And then if you have to make an adjustment, like if you take the shot and the eye test it doesn't look right, you can say I need more fill light. You don't have to get up from where you're shooting to go over to the fill light. You just go to group B, you're already on channel 5, and you make the adjustments with this device. I found that very, very handy. The other thing that I found today was that using the modeling lamp worked really well. You could do it in percentages or you could leave it on all the time. I think use of the modeling lamp in this environment in the studio like today is very helpful. Lastly, I'll say that I had no challenges with the range of the light from the, you know, using this particular trigger. Again, the studio is not that big, but I can move anywhere I wanted to, and I never had a problem triggering the lights. One thing you want to make sure you're doing though in a situation like we were doing today is don't have your second light or your fill light or lights, don't have them in slave mode unless that's what you want. So you want to make sure you check those settings. It's one of the things that I do whenever I'm in studio. And sure enough, when I first grabbed that one backup light from the studio, it was already in S1. So it would have been in slave mode, which means that it would have gotten its commands from seeing the flash coming off the key, and I didn't want that. I want them going at the exact same time, but at different power outputs. So that's pretty much kind of it today. One other thing I would recommend, I don't know if you could tell or not, but before I went to studio today, I made sure to, you know, put some markings to identify my AD400 because I know I was going to be in an environment with other lights that are also Godox. And what I like about this is pretty simple. I just use a yellow tape where I just put my RBP on it just so that I can see my light from anywhere in the room. I've actually done it on the battery as well as the body and the head as well. And let's not forget the trigger. I don't know if you'll be able to pick that up, but the same thing. Just identifying that in case you have to take it off and sit it down and you're in an environment like our studio that has multiple triggers of multiple types. It's very easy to either leave with the wrong one or have someone take yours by mistake. And if you look at this, even back in the day, I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up, but on the Pocket Wizards, I was using a similar system. The one with the orange tape would sit on top of my camera, and all the others would have yellow on them, the ones that were hanging off of those speed lights. And let's be clear, we talked about that just for a sec. I'm not abandoning the use of multiple speed lights with the Pocket Wizards. I'm just parking it for now because as we talked about earlier, the cost between the two wasn't that big of a difference, you know, between going with a strobe and using multiple speed lights. But so far, and I know I just tested this for the first time today, it looks like the light that comes off of the Godox is cleaner. You know, it's set at 5,500, 5,600 Kelvin, and it's just cleaner. And sometimes with multiple speed lights, I have some issues with white balance and the temperature of those lights, especially if it's over the period of a long shoot. So I didn't shoot long today. I was just there for a little while, but as I test this out over the next few months, I'm going to be curious to see if the way that the lighting seemed to work today is going to be consistent over the length of time that I use that strobe, because if that's the case, that's pretty cool. The last thing I want to leave you guys with is a recommendation that you check out 2 channels. Specifically, there's one called Anthony Tog Life. Anthony Tog Life. Again, I'm going to put the link to his video in the description. What Anthony did was he did a very expansive test of the AD400 along with, I think they're called 200s, but basically it's Godox's version of speed lights, 2 of them together that fit into this housing, and you really get 400 watts of power with that. And then he did some testing with it. He compared that to this, and There was pluses and minuses all around, but at the end of the day, when I saw that video, for the sake of portability, convenience, consistency, and power, as opposed to buying 2 of the Godox speed lights and bundling them, I chose the 8400 Pro. So check out Anthony's video. Second video I want to leave you with is from our guy, Miguel Quiles. We've talked about him before, super creator. And I'll put a link to a specific video that Miguel has. He has a single octabox. I want to say it's 36 inches, just like this one. He has a single light on a light stand, and he talks about some of the things you want to do when you're shooting in that mode, which is very key to me because that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing the rest of the year. One other thing, when you look at Miguel's video, within that one, he has one that links to it that talks just about high-speed sync in that particular situation. Again, today in studio, no high-speed sync, 1/160th of a second, just to make sure we were good with the features and the functions. So all in all, it's been a pretty long day. I know the video's been a little longer than normal. I thank you guys for hanging with me today. This has been super important to me because, as you know, 2022 is the year that we become better photographers. We're just going to be better at some facet or multiple facets of our photography. For me, that's taking the lighting to the next level. Again, no challenge with the speed light situation. So hopefully over the next 4 to 6 months, I get even better at off-camera lighting. So drop me a line, let me know what you guys are doing to become better photographers. Keep practicing, keep shooting, try to make less mistakes. This is our year where we step our game up, and I'm looking forward to doing that with you. That's all we have for today. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.